There's a reason some people seem to learn faster than everyone else. They enter a new field and rise quickly. They touch a skill and master it while others struggle for years. And from the outside, it looks like talent, luck, a natural gift. But that explanation is comforting and false. Because if talent were the real reason, learning would be out of your control. And deep down, you already know that isn't true. The real difference is not how hard they work, it's how they learn. Most people try to learn with only one part of themselves, their thinking mind. They read, they analyze, they watch tutorials, they collect information. And then they wonder why nothing sticks, why progress feels slow, why understanding doesn't turn into skill, why effort doesn't translate into mastery. The ancient Japanese saw this problem centuries ago, and instead of adding more techniques, they built a system that rewired learning itself. A system so effective that it made mastery predictable, not easy, but inevitable. This system is called Shuhari, and it can make you learn almost anything faster, not by trying harder, but by learning correctly. This is stillness and direction. Here, we don't chase shortcuts or motivation. We study the structures that create real transformation. If you want depth instead of noise, subscribe to the channel. And if you're serious about mastering something instead of endlessly preparing, like the video now, not for the algorithm, but as a commitment to action. Now, listen carefully. Most people believe learning is about understanding. The Japanese knew it isn't. Understanding lives in the mind. Skill lives somewhere deeper. You can understand a movement perfectly and still perform it badly. You can explain a concept flawlessly and still fail to apply it. This is why people get stuck. They confuse knowledge with ability. The Japanese divided mastery into 3 stages, not to complicate learning, but to prevent confusion, because confusion is what keeps people trapped. Shuhari means this. First, you obey the form. Then, you break the form. Finally, you transcend the form. But these are not techniques. They are transformations of identity. At the first stage, you are not allowed to be creative. You are not allowed to improvise. You are not allowed to express yourself. And this is where most people rebel. They want freedom before foundation, expression before control, results before repetition. The Japanese saw this impatience as the root of failure, because speed without structure creates fragility. In the first stage of Shuhari, your job is simple and brutal. You copy, you repeat, you imitate exactly, you remove your opinions from the process. This feels restrictive to modern minds, because we are taught that originality equals intelligence. The Japanese knew the opposite. Originality without mastery is noise. True speed comes later, after the body has learned what the mind cannot teach. This is the first secret most people never accept. Learning does not begin in the mind, it begins in the body. Until the body understands, the skill remains theoretical, and theory never survives pressure. In the next section, you'll understand why the first stage of Shuhari feels boring, why boredom is not a problem but a signal, and why nearly everyone quits before learning even begins. The first stage of Shuhari is called Shu, and it is the stage almost everyone tries to escape. Shu means to obey, to protect the form, to follow without modification. No creativity, no shortcuts, no personal style, just imitation. To the modern mind, this feels humiliating. We want to express ourselves immediately. We want to feel unique. We want results fast. But the Japanese understood something most people refuse to accept. You cannot break rules you have not fully embodied. In Shu, your job is not to understand why. Your job is to execute how. Perfectly, repeatedly, without deviation. This is where boredom appears, and boredom is the first real test of learning, because boredom reveals whether you want mastery or just stimulation. Most people mistake boredom for a sign that something is wrong. The Japanese saw it as proof that the mind is losing control. When repetition becomes boring, it means the thinking mind is no longer entertained, and that is exactly what must happen. Because as long as the thinking mind is active, the body cannot learn. This is why reading, watching, and analyzing feel productive, but rarely create real skill. They keep everything in the head. Shu forces learning downward, into the nervous system. Through repetition, the body begins to recognize patterns without thought. Movements become smoother, timing improves without analysis, errors correct themselves automatically. This is not magic, it is conditioning, and it only happens when you stop interfering. The biggest mistake people make in Shu is trying to optimize too early. They adjust the technique, they mix methods, they add variety, and by doing so, they reset the learning process again and again. The Japanese rule was strict: one form, one method, one way, until the body knows it better than the mind. Only then does Shu end. This is why masters look simple at first glance. Their movements are not flashy, their methods are not complicated, because complexity before embodiment creates fragility, and fragility breaks under pressure. Shu builds something else: reliability. When the body knows what to do even when the mind is tired, distracted, or afraid. This is why Shu feels slow at first, but accelerates everything that comes after. Most people never leave Shu because they never fully enter it. They abandon repetition for novelty, depth for breadth, discomfort for stimulation, and then they wonder why learning feels hard. In the next section, you'll see what happens after the body has learned the form, why creativity becomes possible only after obedience, and how the second stage of Shuhari transforms rigid skill into adaptability. The second stage of Shuhari is called Ha, and this is where learning becomes dangerous. Because Ha does not reward obedience, it rewards awareness. In Shu, you copied, you repeated, you followed without question. But in Ha, the rules begin to loosen. Not because rules are wrong, but because the body no longer needs them. At this stage, the form is already inside you. Not memorized, embedded. Your hands know what to do. Your timing exists without calculation. Your body responds before thought appears. This is where most people misunderstand mastery. They think Ha is about rebellion, breaking rules for the sake of freedom. It is not. Ha is about adaptation. The Japanese knew that reality never repeats itself exactly. No opponent moves the same way twice. No situation unfolds identically. Rigid skill breaks here, and that is why Shu alone is not enough. In Ha, you begin to test the form against reality. You change conditions, you face resistance, you introduce unpredictability. Not to abandon the form, but to stress it. This is how intelligence develops. Your body learns why the form works without the mind explaining it. Mistakes happen here, confusion returns, and many people panic. They think they are getting worse. They are not. They are becoming flexible. In Ha, the thinking mind tries to come back. It wants control again. It wants to analyze every deviation. The Japanese warned against this, because analysis at this stage slows response. Instead, the body must be trusted. You learn to feel distance, timing, pressure. This is why masters look effortless in chaos. They are not reacting from memory. They are responding from perception. Ha trains perception, not just movement, but awareness. You begin to notice subtle shifts, micro changes, moments before moments. This is why Ha takes longer than Shu, because perception cannot be rushed. It develops through exposure, failure, and adjustment. Most people never complete Ha because they grow attached to correctness. They want to be right. They want clean execution. But mastery requires adaptability, not perfection. In Ha, technique becomes fluid. The form bends without breaking. And when adaptation becomes natural, something unexpected happens. The form begins to disappear, not because it is forgotten, but because it is no longer needed consciously. This is where the third stage begins, and it is the most misunderstood of all. In the next section, you'll learn why true mastery looks empty, why effort becomes a liability, and what it really means to transcend the form. The third stage of Shuhari is called Ri, and this is where almost everyone gets confused, because Ri does not look like learning. It looks like emptiness. At this stage, there is no form to follow, no rule to obey, no technique to remember. And people assume that means freedom. They're wrong. Ri is not freedom. It is absence of effort. By the time someone reaches Ri, the body no longer needs instruction. The mind no longer needs to decide. Action happens before thought appears. This is what the Japanese called mushin, no mind. Not a blank mind, a quiet one. A mind that does not interfere. This is why true masters look calm, almost passive. There is no tension in them, no visible striving, because striving would slow them down. Most people try to jump straight to this stage. They read about flow states, they chase intuition, they try to let go, and they fail. Because Ri cannot be forced. It only appears when Shu and Ha are complete. Ri is what remains after repetition has trained the body and adaptation has trained perception. At this stage, technique disappears, but skill does not. In fact, skill becomes sharper. The master does not choose an action, the situation chooses through them. This is why Ri feels almost mystical to observers. They think the master is gifted or enlightened or special. The Japanese rejected that idea. They knew Ri is not talent, it is residue, what remains when all unnecessary effort has been removed. In Ri, there is no internal dialogue, no second guessing, no delay. The action is correct because there is nothing inside arguing with reality. This is also why Ri cannot be maintained permanently. The masters warned about this. If you try to hold on to Ri, you lose it, because trying reintroduces the mind. Ri appears when conditions are right and disappears when they are not. The difference is this. A beginner panics when Ri disappears. A master returns calmly to Shu. This is the final secret. Shuhari is not a ladder you climb once. It is a cycle you return to again and again. Whenever you learn something new, you begin at Shu. Whenever conditions change, you pass through Ha. And whenever interference dissolves, Ri appears on its own. This is why learning becomes faster over time, not because you shortcut the process, but because you stop resisting it. The ancient Japanese did not learn faster because they were smarter. They learned faster because they stopped confusing stages. They obeyed when obedience was required. They adopted when adaptation was required, and they let go when letting go was inevitable. Most people fail because they mix the stages. They try to be creative in Shu, rigid in Ha, and forceful in Ri. Shuhari corrects this. It puts each part of you in its proper place. And when that happens, learning stops feeling heavy. It becomes natural. In the final section, you'll see how Shuhari applies to your life right now, why most people are stuck forever in the wrong stage, and how to identify exactly where you are so you can move forward without wasting years. Most people fail to learn not because they are slow, but because they're in the wrong stage without realizing it. They are in Shu, but behaving like they are in Ha. They are in Ha, but craving the calm of Ri. And this confusion quietly destroys progress. Let's make this clear. If you are a beginner and you feel bored, frustrated, or restricted, that does not mean something is wrong. It means Shu is working. Shu feels limiting because it strips you of control. It takes away opinions. It removes choice. And the ego hates that. The ego wants to express itself immediately. It wants to feel smart. It wants to improve the method before it understands it. This is why beginners constantly tweak routines, switch teachers, change systems. They call it learning. It is avoidance. Shu requires humility, and humility feels slow, but humility builds speed later. Now look at Ha. If you've been practicing for a while and suddenly things feel messy, unpredictable, even chaotic, that doesn't mean you are regressing. It means you are adapting. Ha feels uncomfortable because certainty disappears. You are no longer protected by rules. Mistakes increase. Confidence wavers. This is where most people retreat back to Shu, clinging to correctness instead of growth. But growth lives in uncertainty. Ha demands courage, the courage to be imperfect while remaining consistent. And then there is Ri. Most people romanticize Ri without ever earning it. They want effortlessness without repetition, flow without friction, intuition without experience. But Ri only appears when the mind finally stops interfering, and the mind only steps aside when it trusts the body completely. This trust cannot be rushed. Here is the most practical truth of Shuhari. You do not choose the stage. Reality chooses it for you. Your job is not to escape discomfort, but to recognize it correctly. Ask yourself this: am I avoiding repetition because it feels boring? Then I am in Shu. Am I avoiding uncertainty because it feels chaotic? Then I am in Ha. Am I chasing ease because I am tired of effort? Then I am not ready for Ri. Shuhari does not judge you for where you are. It only punishes confusion. When you obey at the wrong time, you stagnate. When you experiment at the wrong time, you collapse. When you try to transcend too early, you drift. But when each stage is respected, learning accelerates naturally. This is why the Japanese appeared to learn faster. They didn't rush, they didn't skip, they didn't confuse depth with speed. They accepted slowness at the beginning to remove slowness later. In the final section, you'll learn how to apply Shuhari to any skill, any goal, or any phase of your life, and how to use it not just to learn faster, but to stop wasting years repeating the same mistakes. Shuhari is not a theory. It is a mirror. It shows you exactly why you've been stuck and exactly what to do next. Not someday. Now. If you feel overwhelmed by information, you are not lacking intelligence. You are lacking structure. If you keep switching methods, you are not curious. You are avoiding commitment. If you keep waiting to feel ready, you are not cautious. You are afraid of obedience. Shuhari removes excuses by removing confusion. It tells you something simple and uncomfortable. You don't need a better strategy. You need to respect the stage you are in. If you are starting something new, your only responsibility is Shu. Choose one teacher, one method, one form, and repeat it until your opinions go quiet. Do not improve it. Do not customize it. Do not make it yours. Let it make you. If you have consistency but feel limited, you are entering Ha. Do not retreat. Do not cling to correctness. Expose yourself to reality, pressure, variation. Let mistakes teach you what rules cannot. And if, after years of repetition and adaptation, there are moments where action feels effortless, where thought disappears, do not chase that state. Do not name it. Do not cling to it. That is Ri. It comes when interference leaves, and it leaves only when it is no longer needed. This is the final truth most people miss. Learning faster is not about doing more. It is about doing the right thing at the right stage without resistance. Shuhari does not promise speed immediately. It promises inevitability, and inevitability always beats motivation. If you feel behind in life, it is not because you started late. It is because you keep restarting. Respect Shu, endure Ha, release into Ri. Then repeat the cycle with the next skill, the next responsibility, the next version of yourself. This is how mastery compounds, quietly, relentlessly, without shortcuts. This is stillness and direction, not information, not motivation, structure. And once structure is in place, learning stops being a struggle and becomes a process you can trust.